calling the Amani City School District's Board of Education meeting today, September 12, 2022. And I will begin today's meeting with a roll call, beginning with Mrs. Cobian,
Present.
Mrs. Mendez Garcia,
Present.
Mrs. Rivas,
Present.
and Rueda's present. Today we have Mr. Sigrist, who is absent. And before I proceed to our flag salute, I want to take this moment to, as you all know, yesterday was September 11. And as we remember, back in 2001, almost 3,000 people lost their lives during the attacks at the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and on air. We all remember how our entire country paused and exactly what we were doing when we heard the tragic news. Today, I want to take a few seconds. Let us take a few seconds to honor those who we lost, to those that lost their lives. Nevertheless, taking this moment to remember and reflect on the importance of unity and how coming together for peace for our loved ones, our children, our community, for our country, for our world, that's the only way we can make a better place for all. Thank you. And we will continue with the flag salute, and we will have Mrs. Rivas lead us in the flag salute today.
Please stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will continue with our items of interest on today's agenda, beginning with the Amani City School District Wellness Update. And with that, we'll pass it over to Dr. Teresa Pinedo.
Good evening. Is it working? Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, President Ruedas, Governing Board. It is my pleasure to introduce Ilbea Fidel, who will be presenting today on one of our biggest priorities, which is wellness for our students, staff, and families. We have various systems of support in place to meet the wellness needs of the individuals that we serve, and Ms. Fidel will be presenting on those systems.
Good evening, board members and cabinet. My name is Ilbea Fidel, and it's my pleasure to share with you an overview of our wellness program in Amani City School District. This presentation includes a summary of our counselor supports, our staff supports and resources, parent supports, as well as supports offered through our Jeff Seymour Family Center and our health services. With the addition of our school counselors and social workers at every school site, we have been able to increase the amount of social emotional learning services tremendously for all stakeholders. Here, you'll see that at this time, all students are able to speak to someone whenever they need to. They can do this by either requesting to see a counselor themselves, or a teacher can request for them to see a student, as well as walk-in times that all of our counselors provide for our students as well. The counselors also provide staff training, school-wide campaigns, and classroom presentations, such as preparing for middle school, or managing emotions, recognizing and managing emotions for our kinder through 6th grade. Along with the services for all, they're also able to provide small group services. Our small groups at this time are created through our universal screener. With the addition of our second step curriculum, we're able to utilize this year. We will be able to ramp up this service as well. Our counselors also provide support with our restorative practices. They're able to provide instructional lessons when needed as other means of corrections, and also provide conflict resolutions as needed as well. In addition, in this area will be our 21st century executive functioning skills. These small groups will run quarterly, utilizing the information from our progress reports, specifically the section on 21st century skills. Apart from our small groups, we also support with crisis response, and also provide individual counseling referrals, whether that be to our internship program or to our mental health agencies. This year, we're also going to be fleshing out our process for threat assessments, so we're looking forward to that as well, just because the better prepared we are, the better we're able to respond to the situations that arise. All our services are encapsulated in our end-of-year reports, where we're able to try to quantify the amount of services that we provided at each school site. What you have here is an example of the reports provided by Gidley and by Potrero. The first page gives you the amount of services provided by tier 1, 2, and 3. And then in the second page, we also include a portion where we're able to report out on the amount of students that actually ask to see someone on their own. Regarding Amani City School District staff, I'm happy to report that we continue to provide our EASE program, our Employee Assistance Program, which provides a variety of resources for our staff, including therapy if needed. Along with our 2 licensed clinical social workers, we're also able to provide quarterly newsletters that focused on wellness, as well as the grief and loss group that we ran across last year, our Wellness Wednesdays. And we also offered open office hours for our staff to be able to consult regarding any mental health concerns, either for themselves or for their students. These resources were also encapsulated in an end-of-the-year report as well. I would click on it, but unable to on this side, but you have it for your viewing later. So what you see here is just basically a summary of the services for our staff, and all these services actually were placed inside our staff wellness resource website, which is still there, but in this coming school year, 2022-2023, we're actually taking a look at all these services and trying to decide how we're going to revamp them, because the majority of them were created during the time that we were in school closure. We kept them because they function just time-wise for our staff, but we're looking forward to providing some staff surveys that will inform us as far as what staff feel their needs and their interests are, and how we can ramp up this area further. Moving on to our families, our goal this year is to strengthen our school-to-home connection, to provide some more learning opportunities for our parents. And so this year, we're rolling out a series of workshops for our parents that will be delivered by either our school counselors and social workers, our behavior specialists, our community liaisons. And so we will be having like multiple parent workshops running every month. Some examples of these workshops would be understanding anxiety and impulsivity, the do's and don'ts of punishment, and understanding your child's report card. A new addition is going to be our Stronger Together newsletter for parents. And with this newsletter, it's actually a revamping of our counseling corner. We've actually now turned our newsletter, it's geared more towards parents, right? In the beginning, we were speaking to our students when they were online and finding a way to connect with them. But now in this new phase of the pandemic, we feel we need to provide as much support to our parents as they transition and try to manage different situations with their children, right? In an effort to continue to support our families, just overall, we have some additional resources that we provide for them at the Jeff Seymour Family Center, like our parent mental health workshops. We paired up with DMH and La Promotoras, our wellness festival, and the pop-up clinics as COVID ebb and flows, right? Sometimes you need testing, sometimes you need vaccines, and so we're just kind of moving along with the needs of the community. We also provide referrals to public assistance programs such as CalFresh to encourage better nutrition at home or make sure that everybody has what they need, the basics, right? Through our health services, we also provide immunizations, physicals, and referrals to dental health services through our Western Dental internship program. They're based at our site once a week. And lastly, in partnership with Vision to Learn, we also offer vision screening and eyeglasses. At this time, we've been able to provide that to at least 3 or 4 schools, but the mobile moves around from school to school, so we anticipate that they will visit every school site. And that was our wellness program in a nutshell. I thank you for your time and for your continued support as we try to encourage all to continue to focus on wellness as a lifestyle and not just as a passing trend.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments, questions from the board? Mrs. Kobian.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the presentation and just for all the multifacets of how we're viewing wellness and the resources that we can provide to families. I know I really appreciated the newsletters that came out and the contact with parents. And I'll just say, having one in the schools, when the counselors came and talked to all the students at the beginning of the year to kind of let them know what was going on, the response I got at home was just like, it's really neat that you can have somebody you can just go talk to. And so I think just at every level, there's something that every student can take advantage of. And I just want to say I really appreciate that we're providing that for our students. Thank you.
Any others?
Yeah, and I also appreciate your last comment that it's a lifestyle, right? Not just something that's temporary. And I think the same way we approach physical health, right? We're always constantly trying to promote good eating habits and exercise. It's the same thing with promoting wellness. So thank you.
Absolutely. Definitely agree 100% with my colleagues and what they mentioned. One of the things that that really stood out to me during the beginning of the year, this year, was the Wellness Festival that you had. And I kept seeing additional organizations coming to our district and being part of this Wellness Festival, right, for that specific purpose, to disseminate information and education to our community, to our parents, right, to everyone that exists. So that was great to see. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation as well. Any others? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Wonderful. Now we're ready to move on to our communications section of today's agenda, beginning with public comments. And I do see here we have a public comment from Mr. Cosme Jimenez. Welcome, Mr. Jimenez.
Jimenez, the main activist in town that really cares about this city. That's one of the main reasons I'm here. I guess one of the few that we care about the city. Sometimes you become a politician, you a couple of months later you don't remember where you are. But I received this letter about a year ago related to Norwood School. It was like a questionnaire to a neighborhood there to take suggestions what to do with that school. I don't know if the district is aware of it because I haven't heard anything. The council doesn't know, and I hope you know, because the Norwood School, I live about half a block away from Norwood. And the main purpose of that I could see is a park. Believe it or not, with the last city in the county, parks ratio. This is one of the most neglected cities in the county, thanks to the lack of leadership at the council. Not all of them, but most of them hungry for power. Luckily, we're working on it to clean it up, And I just want to know if you know about it or somebody can explain me the situation about Norwood School, because one neighbor asked me about a week ago, what are you going to do with Norwood? So I don't know. Nobody knows. And that's not right to me. You know, if they, and I even like a anonymous letter send no IP address, no nothing, send it to me, and then send me a questionnaire asking me what to do, my suggestion to do with this Norwood School. So I put parks. Yeah, that's the one I know. If somebody knows, please can respond to me, because I need to know, you know, if something's going to happen, or the city, the board might be able to work with the city to ask for a grant or something right now, because it takes 3 years to get a grant from Sacramento. If you start now something, you have to wait 3 years, and then 3 more years to build a park, probably, you know, talking about at least 5 years. And this city cannot wait any longer. This city is one of the worst cities in San Gabriel Valley. Worst, neglected. You know, that's the best way to describe it. You know, you can see it. I don't have to tell you. You go to Baldwin Park, go to Temple City. You're in a different country when you go there. And we need to move faster. Hopefully after November, with the new members coming to the council, we can do something about it and quick. If I can get an answer to this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez, for your comment today. Other than that, we have no additional public comments. Thank you. Okay, we move on to our written communications.
No written communication has come forward.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Continuing with our board member communications, beginning with Mrs. Cobian.
Thank you. I just wanted to actually recognize and thank our district for the work that's happening for our students after school. So providing those recreation opportunities, the soccer, the golf, and all of the things to come. So it's been very exciting to see that start to roll out. I know we had that presentation at our last meeting. And also have a 6th grader who's very excited for science camp. And so just very excited that we're able to have our students go back and do the outdoor science school with the county this year. So I know it was put on hold for some students, but just definitely excited that we're able to take advantage of that opportunity and the support that the district is giving for our students this year. So thank you, and that's my comment for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Mrs. Mendez Garcia.
Hi there. Good evening, board. One, I'd like to thank all of the teachers and staff with hosting back to school night, because I know that takes extra hours of them preparing and planning and staying after school. I was able to attend the back to school night for Columbia Elementary, and it was obviously very well put together and really exciting that they're celebrated their centennial, right? Some of the things I just really appreciated that the time the teachers took to put put on a presentation for the teachers, parents, for them to understand, right? Introduce themselves, expectations that school year, upcoming school year, and then also the materials they provided teachers were really helpful. I saw some teachers that created little brochures so that parents could, use that to take home, so they can also follow up on the expectations that are going to be needed for this coming school year. So, again, just thank you to all the staff and teachers for putting together such a great back to school night.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Mrs. Rivas.
I'll just echo Mrs. Mendez Garcia's comments about back to school night, and likewise thank the teachers and staff for those good events. Something that I noticed happening at back to school nights, not only were the families connecting with the teachers in the classrooms, but the families were reconnecting with each other after years of being apart. It's one of the places where those things happen, right, where the community comes together. So personally, that was really, really refreshing, and I just saw it happening all around me. So thankful that the schools are a wonderful place where the community does connect, and that is finally happening again.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. And again, I want to thank, our entire school community, right? Going back to the back to school nights, I attended Shripster and Rio Vista schools for their back to school nights. And just let me tell you, we were all super and beyond well, especially the parents, the children. I was feeling, it was on August 17th, and right after that, so obviously the following day was the first day, And you were able to see how parents and the teachers and students were just eager and waiting for the morning right after to come back, and very, very noticeable. And as you mentioned, Mrs. Rivas, the work that happens in our schools is beyond noticeable. One of the things that really stood out to me while attending these two schools were the many resources that were available at each campus, right? So when we're talking about that there's resources in our community where our families can definitely benefit from, we have them available in our schools. So very, very happy to see that, and for our schools to continuing promoting that. So that was great to see. Both schools super well attended. The parents were there. There was a huge line to wait to come in. So that's how exciting and fascinating it was. I was very, very happy to see that. So that is my update. Thank you all, and we will continue now with our closed session. And today we have our item pursuant to Government Code 54957, Public Employee Appointment, Director of Instruction and Assessment. With this said, we will come back. Thank you. At 5:39, and during closed session, we discussed item pursuant to Government Code 54957, Public Employee Appointment, Director of Instruction and Assessment, and no action was taken. Thank you. Okay, now we will continue with our approval of minutes. Consideration of approval of minutes for the August 15, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to public hearing. And today we have a public hearing regarding the sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. In compliance with Educational Code 60119, the Amani City School District must hold a public hearing during its regular Board of Education meeting regarding its sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials. The public hearing allows the public to speak regarding the district's compliance regarding Educational Code 60119. Is there anyone at this time who wishes to comment on the sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials? Okay, we can close it at 5:41 p.m. Let the minutes reflect that a public hearing regarding Educational Code 60119, sufficiency of pupil textbooks and instructional materials, was held. Okay, continuing to our action consent section of this evening's agenda. Do we have any board members that would like to pull any items at this time? Okay. Hearing none?
I'll move
Okay,
to
do we
approve
have a
the
motion?
action and consent
Perfect.
agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. I'm sorry, you have an item?
No, just I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now moving on to our actions section. Beginning with item number 1, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 22-2303, sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
I move to
Doctor,
approve.
Do,
Oh, go ahead.
do we have, I'm sorry, do you have Dr. Pinedo
Yes.
on this one? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. President Ruedas, Governing Board, it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 222303, declaring that every student in the Amani City School District has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials for reading language arts, mathematics, science, and history social science for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Pinedo. Do we have a motion on
I
item
so
number 1?
move.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Continuing with item number 2, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 22-2304 proclaiming October 9th through the 15th of 2022 as Week of the School Administrator. Dr. Pinedo.
Thank you. President Ruedas and Governing Board, research has repeatedly shown that quality school leadership is essential to student success. California's Week of the School Administrator is one way to share the good news about public education and to celebrate our educational leaders that help schools and students succeed.
Thank you for this, Dr. Pinedo. And do we have a motion for item number 2?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item number 3, consideration of approval of purchase orders. And now we will pass it over to Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, Board President Ruedas and members of the Governing Board. Before you is the purchase order report for the month of August. We had 290 purchase orders on this report, totaling just under $4 million. Some of the ones I want to highlight was a rather large purchase order with the MERGE Joint Powers Authority, which is the joint powers authority that we participate in for workers' comp coverage, and that is the premium for the workers' comp coverage for the year, $2.1 million. We also have a purchase order for $600,000 to another JPA that we're a part of for property and liability insurance to the Southern California Relief JPA. And we have a purchase order for $140,000 to Panda Restaurant Group for some of our tasty supper items that our nutrition services team puts on the supper menu for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. And for item number 3, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Abstain from Mrs. Rivas. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, consideration of approval of the 2021-2022 unaudited actuals. Mr.
Thank you,
Herrera.
Mrs. Ruedas. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Margaret Lamb, who is our Director of Fiscal Services for the Monte City School District. Her team was really hard at work this summer, closing the books. Our fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th, and our accounting team is hard at work making sure that we close the books and get everything submitted on time. The unaudited actuals report is due by September 15th to the County Office of Education 4 times throughout the year. The board acts on required reports, right? You have your adopted budget in June, you have your first interim in December, your second interim in March. And once we close the year out, the unaudited actuals are presented in September at the close of our fiscal year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Margaret Lamb so she can give you all an overview of our unaudited actuals. The document is about 168 pages, but Margaret's going to do us a favor to summarize this in the presentation she put together for us. So go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, let me take out. Good. I could take out. I could read now. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Garcia, members of the cabinet, and members of the public. Tonight, I will be presenting the result of the 2021-22 unaudited actual. Before I go through the numbers, let me just go back a review of the budget cycle. So last June, we submitted to the board our June adopted budget, and now we're submitting for board review the 2021-22 unaudited actual. Yes. So right before the June budget was adopted, the state actually enacted enacted a new budget for 22-23, which some of the changes were reflected as part of the 45 days revision that was submitted to the board last August. And we would be going back to the board again on December to give an update of the 22-23 first interim. So tonight's focus would be only 1 year, the 21-22 unaudited actual. So we ended the year with a surplus, showing that with the general fund accounting for 82% of the total district revenue and 87% of the total expenditure. It's close to what we were expecting when we presented the estimated actual, with some changes in the expenditure 21-22 in the general fund, mainly because of some of the categorical funding that we would be using in 22-23 instead of the 21-22 fiscal year. So this next slide is a summary of the general fund only, because since it accounts for majority of the district revenue and expenditure. What's interesting to note is that the statewide average of unrestricted ending balance reserve is around 26% in 2021. The district, when we close the books for 21-22, the unrestricted end-of-year reserve is around 9%. This represents approximately 4 weeks of operating expenses for the district. This is based off of just cash flow. We normally would spend 11 to 12 million, or we would need 11 to 12 million in cash during a fiscal month, or during the month. But the total ending balance is estimated to be at 35.98%. So this is the 21-22 result of operation, but just to give some interesting information on like what's going to happen next after the 21-22, because 21-22 is almost like it's almost like this is the end of year report. There's no more changes anticipated for 21-22 unless there's some audit changes which were not foreseeing at all. But for the 22-23 year, it's interesting to note that the state revenue forecast as of the enacted budget, which was in July, is showing that we peaked the general fund revenues for the statewide revenues peaked actually at 21-22 with 216 billion, and it's estimated to fall to 210 billion in 22-23. Assuming a modest economic slowdown in the big three taxes, it is expected to plateau in the 23-24 year. This is with the modest economic slowdown. What's interesting here is that in just the last few weeks, the state released their revenue estimate, and they're falling way behind on that. So we continue to monitor the situation so that we could update the district's fiscal forecast as soon as we get more data. So let me just talk about the big three revenue in very short term. So when they talk about big three state revenue, we're talking about the corporate taxes, the sales and use taxes, and the personal income taxes. What's interesting in this pie chart is that 66% of the big three revenue is coming from the personal income tax. So there's certain volatility that is involved because in 2020, only approximately 1% of the resident paid nearly 50% of the personal income tax. This is what they call like your top 1%, and then it's dependent on the stock market, their capital gain, which is why California, even during the COVID crisis, because of the K-shaped recovery, did not experience as much of a revenue dip that we initially feared. Since the stock market is fluctuating as we speak, it's probably like that makes our state revenue a little more volatile. Another another important factor that we are considering as we open up school year is the LCFF base year. Majority, around 100 million of the the district revenue is coming from LCFF. And about 30% of that, 30 million of that, is coming from unduplicated count. These are our targeted student where the unduplicated count is composed of our free and reduced kids, our English learners, our homeless, and foster youth. So every 4 years, the district is required, based off of Ed Code, to actually recertify that unduplicated count data. And just so happened that 22-23 is a LCFF base year. This means that the district will have to collect what they call an alternative income forms for all of our students to determine their unduplicated counts income eligibility status. In the past, when we were a P2 provision to district in cafeteria, we would collect what they call like the nutrition services, like to get your free and reduced. But since we are a CEP district, that means our free and reduced meals is based off of a direct certification in the state. We don't collect any more of the nutrition services form. So we're now required to collect an alternative income form instead. Why we are monitoring the trend is because since 2018-19, which is when the last time that we tried to collect as part of the provision to collection our unduplicated count, we were at a 94.44. But every single year, we would try to update the data, and we notice a trend of almost like a 1% decrease, which is an approximately 200,000 per 1% in 22-23. And because of how the formula works, because it's a rolling average, we would lose across 3 years about 1.2 million for every 1%. So because it's rolling average, so the first year you lose 200,000, the second year you lose 400,000, and then the third year you're going to basically, if the trend continues, to lose 600,000. So across 3 years, it's 1.2 million. So we're doing a lot of trying to engage our teachers and our community to actually submit the alternative household income form, just so that we would get 100% collection. What the data would say on that collection is, again, like anybody's guess, just because there's a lot of changing demographics, I think, in our schools. So we continue to see a decline on that. And we're also focused on it just because it's not just LCFF revenue. A lot of the one-time monies that the state has been giving us was based off of unduplicated count. That's why the district saw a lot of we were one of the school districts that saw a lot of increase in revenue because of our unduplicated count. Some of the changes in the state enacted budget, I'll go through the list. One of the biggest change is the LCFF change. So from June budget to the enacted budget, we saw an addition of in the LCFF base, which we reflected already as part of the 45-day revise last August of 2.8 million. There's also the 21-22 COVID-19 attendance adjustment. This one is going to increase the district revenue by approximately 600,000. We have not yet reflected that since CDE actually hasn't given us guidelines on how they're going to calculate it. Just a week ago, they had a training, and they were saying that they're going to add on to one of our reporting, statutory reporting website. They're going to add some of those adjustments, as well as it's the same thing for the transitional K add-on. They're going to give us 1,500 per transitional kindergarten kids. So we are expecting approximately 472. So about $1 million we have not yet reflected as part of the 22-23 the district budget as part of the 45-day revise. The other changes that we saw as part of the enacted budget is that The discretionary grant, which was initially reflected as part of the May revise, so we reflected it in the June budget of approximately 10.4 million, is no longer in the enacted budget. So that's a decrease of 10 million. But not to worry, they replace it with something else, which is a little bit bigger but more restrictive. The state is giving us the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, which we would have approximately almost 16 million of it one time. And then they also put a number on the Arts and Music Block Grant, which we did not reflect in the June budget since we didn't know their allocation formula and whatnot. They have initial estimate allocation of close to 4.7 million. Another thing that changed is the Extended Learning Opportunity Program. We were anticipating that we were going to get almost 17 million in the ELOP funding. The current estimate is it's going to be closer to 13.7 million. So that's why you have ELOP, the Extended Learning Opportunity Program, dropping by 3.3 million. So the next steps, these are some of the things that we're looking forward to, or we're trying to monitor, or trying to look at it closely. It's the CBEDS enrollment, which would get determined in October. The household income forms collection, which would determine the district's LCFF unduplicated pupil count, not just for this year, but for the next 3 years. And then we would go back to board for the 22-23 first interim review, and then as well as to present the 21-22 audit in December. That's it. So any questions?
Actually, I had just one question. I don't know if have the forms, the household income forms, like the monitoring we've been doing, have they been reflective of the changing demographics in the community? I know you said we weren't quite sure, but is that the expectation?
So what we've been trying to do is, like, in the past, even if we're in the past, we were like we were able to use the 2018-19 designation for some of the kids, but the students that were getting new forms on, because how it works is that the LCFF base year, you get it for all the students that you have in your district, and then as soon as you have new student, you could collect from them. So for the students that we're collecting for the new ones, it's showing that, like, it's not the unduplicated count for that population is not as high, and the kids that, like, we used to have like X amount that are collected, and the kids leave, right? So the base year data drops, but it doesn't. The new data does not replace the departure of the kids that left.
Okay.
And if I could add to that, Margaret, one of the things that it's hard to quantify is it change in demographics, or parents, when they were submitting their free and reduced lunch applications, right, depending on how they answered or how they filled that information, would qualify them for either free or reduced price meals, right? So I think as we transition from lunch applications to then feeding all students for free back in 2018, and we continue that model going forward, I wouldn't say there is an incentive or disincentive for parents to put a certain household income number on the back to school forms that we push out. So who's to know if it's a change in demographics, which we think it is, but something else that maybe perhaps could be leading to it is that in the past, many years ago, when we collected lunch applications, depending on how those responses were given by the parents, would determine whether their child would have free meals or reduced meals. And now there's no, regardless of if the form is turned in these days or if it's not turned in, although we try our best to get to 100% completion, all students are getting free meals regardless of if the form is being turned in. Now, we loop that into our back to school forms, and so we have a good response rate because we want to make sure we have updated emergency contact information, food allergy, and all that other information that we ask. And this year, we launched a parent portal electronically through our student information system. And we're happy to say that over half of our parents submitted electronically. And the other half, we're doing a big outreach to make sure that over the next week or so, we get all those forms turned in. So I think it's a combination of those two factors that's leading to the dip year over year with our unduplicated percentage.
Thank you.
I have a question in regard to What you just mentioned, Mr. Herrera, about our parents submitting electronically. What about those parents that perhaps don't really know, not familiar with technology? Do we have something on site where they can have access to and do it right there?
Yeah, so our schools have been doing a wonderful job of working with the community liaisons to open up their parent rooms and invite parents in to submit them electronically. We do have hard copies as well, available in multiple languages that we provide to the families as well. And so we're providing every opportunity for parents to fill it out, right? They can fill it out on their child's device as well, right? Because all kids have Chromebooks these days and they're taking them home if there's no device in the home. We still have a lot of hotspots out there in the community for kids that don't have internet services in the house. But if for whatever reason they prefer the paper option, we do have the hard copies available. And initially we're pushing the electronic submission to encourage that. But we know that the hard copy, it's sometimes a little easier to gather that from parents. And so we have multiple copies that we've sent home with parents and the students, right, starting last week. And we hope to get the remaining forms turned in end of this week.
If I can just add a little to that as well, I think, as we were transitioning to the electronic parent portal, a conversation that we had is we want to make sure that, all parents have access to, the ability to share information with us, because that's really what we're after, right? We want to make sure that we have accurate emergency contact information so that, we're able to reach parents. And we really want to make sure that we can continue to grow our communication home to school and school to home. But I think the other piece of data that we're also going to be capturing simultaneously is, our parents' comfortable points with technology. And not to say that, we're keeping hard track, but we want to make sure that we have the ability to support families so they can jump into this, technological world. Because everywhere you go, the number one question is, what is your email address? I think a lot of county and state offices will give you access to websites or how to email departments, first and foremost, as a way of communicating to get more information or to make connections. And so we want to make sure that our families are also moving with, digitally with their children. So just to really reiterate the point that Mr. Herrera made, we have the Chromebooks are at home. We have Chromebooks in our community liaisons rooms, our parent rooms. We have hotspots available, and we're going to be really capturing this data piece for us, right? How many of our families feel comfortable connecting to these portals so that we can continue to assist them? Because at the end of the day, we know it's not just about Amani City School District. It's really about connecting to all of the resources that can be available to them if they're connected to internet, technology, email, and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to how we can continue to support our families as we capture this information.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And I really like what both of you just mentioned, the encouragement, right, to our parents, right, that, this is going towards like the new way of doing everything, as you mentioned, email and everything. And we all know it takes time, right? It won't be overnight, but nevertheless, I'm glad that there's this encouragement happening here in our district.
I was sharing with our staff, it reminds me of, those of us that grew up having to translate for our parents. And in a way, our kids are doing that with technology now for their parents. And so, we're going to be there right alongside them to make sure that we can be a bridge.
Thank you for that, Dr. Garcia. Thank you so much, Mrs. Lam, for your wonderful presentation. Okay, and now, if we're ready to provide a motion for item number 4. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve item 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Okay, continuing with item number 5, consideration of approval of administrative appointment.
President Redas and governing board members, this evening we have a very exciting recommendation for you this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pinedo to make that recommendation on behalf of the district.
Thank you. President Ruedas and Governing Board, it is my pleasure to make a recommendation to appoint Dr. Rudolph Torres as the new Director of Instruction and Assessment. Dr. Torres comes to us with a well-rounded background and work experience that includes his current role in the Garvey School District as the Director of Innovation and Technology. He's been a principal in elementary schools, a dual language school, a middle school principal in Fullerton School District, and a principal and assistant principal in the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District. Additionally, he has experience or expertise in coaching instructional leaders, preschool to 8th grade leadership, and providing professional development. One of the things that stood out about Dr. Torres when we spoke about access was that it should not take families multiple generations before their children could access a college education. And so with that, Dr. Torres brings passion about eliminating barriers and paving the way for students in our community to access college opportunities.
Oh, and if we may, congratulate at this time Dr. Rudolph Torres, but
Actually-
we would like to pass it over to Dr. Garcia.
We'll take a motion first, but I know we're eager to get him on the mic so that he can share a
do
little bit
that.
with them. So yeah.
We'll do that.
I
Thank
move
you,
to
Dr.
approve the
Garcia.
recommendation.
And I'll
Okay,
second.
Wonderful. Motion by Mrs. Rivas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. And Dr. Rudolph Torres.
Dr. Torres, we have a tradition where we like to put you on the spot
Yes.
on day one. So if you don't mind joining us, we set up a microphone so that you can share a little bit more about you. And congratulations.
Thank you. No, I'm going to use my teacher voice. Yes, thank you very much, President Ruedas, Board, Superintendent Garcia, and Cabinet. I just want to thank you very, very much. I can't share with you how humbled I am to be here. Sincerely, it's the best of both worlds. You know, professionally to be involved in the work that I love, that I'm passionate about, and to be in a community that matters, right? And so it's those two pieces together. That really just it's incredibly a humbling experience. I had shared with Mr. Sollenbach that, you know, I share a lot with my wife. And so when I was talking with my wife about this, you know, I was incredibly nervous. You know, I was telling her about this great opportunity, and she says, you know, why aren't you more excited? Because I was so nervous. Like it's two worlds that I'm so passionate about. To do what matters in a community that matters was something I love. I did share with the team during the interview process that I am actually part of at least three generations of Amani folks. My family is from this area. I have at least 4 aunts and uncles that live just right around the corner from here. I did share that over time, it's taken 3 generations for my cousins and their grandchildren to finally make it into where they can graduate from college. So to come back, if you will, to Amani and to be part of that process, to guide the learning, to guide instruction in a community where my family still resides, and that's to say that that's what I know. You know, I still have family that's from Pico Rivera from 1922, and so it's really something just to give back to the community. I'm just truly excited. Just something really quick about myself. You know, I am also a father, a husband of 26 years. I have 3 daughters. I'm very involved in what they do. Just my wife would have been here tonight, but my kids have sports. And so yeah, after school, my kids run around with sports. I'm very involved in soccer. I can't coach them anymore because they're now teenagers. And so they're much more advanced than what I could do when they were little. But I do plan on sharing my family with the Amani community. We're a very involved family, so I'm really, really excited. I'm very humbled to be here, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to Dr. Rudolph Torres. And at this time, I would like to ask my colleagues on the board if they would like to express their comments.
I would just like to say welcome, and we appreciate you being here and know that there are many great things ahead, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, and we're all looking forward to be able to work with you.
I'll share my welcome as well, and heard just wonderful things about you. And so nice to meet you and to just hear a little bit about your passion for the community and for the work that you love.
I am so looking forward to getting into the work. I am so looking forward to just being part of the Amani family. One last point, and I promise. I was going through and in doing my research, in researching the Amani school district, I did take note to just the longevity and the community. I had the good fortune as a leadership student at Cal Poly. My teacher was Jeff Seymour. And so in the cohort system back in, I want to say 2005, 2006, I do remember my leadership classes. And as a candidate at the time for an administrative candidate to be an assistant principal, I do remember thinking that I knew what it was to be the principal, right? We're teachers, we observe our administrators, and we think that we know what it means to be a leader. And what Jeff described conceptually was this school red house in the middle of the community. And the way he described that the school was a center of the community, to engage the community, to improve the community, to do so much for the community, really opened my eyes in terms of what leadership really was. And I've taken that vision, whether it was through Hudson La Puente, through Fullerton. I remember working with Habitat for Humanity just to support the community and meeting their needs. And then now in the Garvey School District here in Rosemead, and we're neighbors. And so the idea to serve the community at that level is truly humbling. So thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.
Again, congratulations and thank you, Dr. Rudolph Torres. Just hearing you is very inspiring, and we're definitely in good hands, and so thank you so much. We'll move on now to our board policy updates, and my colleagues on the board had the opportunity to review the policy. I'll go ahead and make the first motion, then ask for a second, and discussion if any. Okay, beginning with board policy update. Number 1, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Exhibit 1113, District and School websites. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Kobian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Continuing with item number 2, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 1312.4 and exhibit 1312.4 Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 3, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3110, transfer funds. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 3517, facilities inspection. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Kobian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 5, consideration of approval of first reading of new board policy 3523 and administrative regulation 3523, electronic signatures. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 6, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3550 and administrative regulation 3550, food service child nutrition program. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 7, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3551 and administrative regulation 3551, food service operations, cafeteria fund. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 8, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 3553 and administrative regulation 3553, free and reduced price meals. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 9, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 4112.2, certification. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 10, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 4161.8, 4261.8, 4361.8, family care and medical leave. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And item number 11, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulation 6173.1, education for foster youth. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to our discussion session for this evening's agenda, beginning with cabinet reports, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, President Redas. As Mr. Dasmati is getting us set up, I just want to extend a big welcome to Dr. Torres, and looking forward to working with him. I know in particular Dr. Pinedo, who's been doing 2 jobs, is very excited to have him on board. And so I think she's going to probably try to coerce you to start tomorrow at 8 a.m., but I know that it can't happen that quickly. But all that to say that we're really happy that you said yes. This is a majestic work that we have before us, and especially in this post-pandemic era where there's a lot of really, important work to be done for this community. We thank you for your passion and all that you're going to bring to really help us move the needle for our kids and community. All right, and so we have an update for you this evening. Really excited to share all the wonderful things that come with the start of a new year. I will tell you that, just visiting schools, and that's part of the presentation, just a few days into the school year, it felt like we have been back for a while. And I say that in a positive way, just because, we picked up right where we left off. But again, just taking it back to those initial moments, there's our first image there that we have to share with you this evening is the wonderful start of the school year for Columbia. Principal Tran welcomed the families and students with a 10-piece mariachi band at 7 a.m. On the first day of school, and it was exciting and fun. We had some news vans out there, just really a wonderful start. And all of our schools were able to do something like that, not with mariachi, but, we had staff welcoming kids at the front of the school, bubble machines, pom-poms, confetti, just this excitement all around. In today's update, we're going to share some business services update that include information about enrollment, Food Literacy Month, Facilities Master Plan. Ed Services is going to talk about the exciting work that we're doing with math and CGI, the first days. We actually had PD days, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Jeff Seymour, events, parent classes, and just a little bit more information about how we're the movement that's happening with ELOP. Personnel will share with you the number of staff that we've onboarded and, of course, COVID updates. Today was a really important date for our school community as masks became optional in our school district. And then lastly, I'll share with you just some wonderful news around back to school nights, outdoor science camp, inclement weather. Not so wonderful the weather, but the response that our district has is always wonderful, and our school visits. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Herrera.
All right, thank you, Dr. Garcia. Before you is the updated enrollment information. So we're holding our breath the first few weeks of school, making sure that we account for all students. The number kind of bounces around the first few days of school, and I think now we're at a point where we can share this information with the board. Census Day is just around the corner. It's the first Wednesday of October every school year where we take a snapshot of the students in our district. Last Census Day, our enrollment was at 7,276 students. So we declined about 2.6% year over year in our enrollment. Currently, we're at 7,081 students in TK through 8th grade. You can see the breakdown there by grade level and by school site. If you add on the 400 or so Head Start students, that gets us up to about 7,500 students that we serve in the Monte City School District. And for purposes of LCFF funding, we look at our TK through 8th grade enrollment, which then converts to ADA based on the percentage of days that they attend. Not to say that our Head Start students don't generate funding, they do generate funding, but that is in a separate fund in Fund 12. So it is a trend that we continue to monitor, as Dr. Garcia mentioned earlier. At one point, I think we had about 13,000 students in our district, and I think it's all but certain as we go into the future year, we probably will dip under 7,000 before you know it. So we're monitoring the information for future updates. What the birth rates tell us is that as we move forward into the future years, the decline continues. There was a steep decline in 2020 with our birth rates year over year, and that will most likely materialize in 2024-25 when those kids become TK and kinder students. The expansion of TK for all 4-year-olds, I think, would offset that slightly. So we're also excited about expanding TK for all 4-year-olds. Some other items we want to highlight in the area of business services and the food services division is our Food Literacy Month. We're going to be highlighting it particularly the last week of September. These are some of the fun items that we'll be pushing out to our community, our parents, our staff, our students, so they're aware of some things that they can do to get going fitness-wise, nutrition. We're going to be sending home some recipes through Parent Square with families that they can do with their kids in the evening. And we're also excited to bring back the Harvest of the Month curriculum that we're going to be starting with our Aspire programming after school. And then we hope as we move forward throughout the year, we'll then incorporate that during the school day with our teachers. We're adding jicama onto the lunch line this week and bringing on some other tasty items for our students. This is something that we are very passionate about, food literacy education and awareness in our EMCSD schools. We can be part of the solution, right? Nutrition education is something that continues to be a big focus of the district. It started about maybe 10 to 15 years ago when we got a lot of these grants that came into the district, and we will continue pushing that this year and going forward. Coming out of a pandemic, we know that our wellness, our what we eat is very important, and that's something that we're going to continue to promote so that it maintains part of our culture here in the Monte City School District. As we look at the facilities area, right, we heard from our partners at Perkins Eastman at the study session at the end of July. So we've continued to move forward with the good work with our master plan. We began the process of doing some evaluations this month of our schools to see how our buildings and school grounds are adequate educationally wise, see where perhaps we're underutilizing them or where they're not meeting our needs. So we're going to continue with those assessments just to make sure that we have a great baseline of our facilities and identifying how our buildings and school grounds support a 21st century learning environment. We're going to continue future assessments over the coming months with our school sites to get input and our school leaders. Something else that we're building is a communication or the outreach plan to make sure that we get broad input from all stakeholders, staff, parents, even students, community partners, and community members. So more to come on this, and we hope to bring a finalized master plan to the board in early 2023 And rest assured that there will be opportunity for input from the board as well in the master plan as we move forward, most likely into the November, December timeframe in one of those board meetings.
I'm very excited to share some updates regarding ed services. As of now, all of our K-6 teachers have been trained in the first days and small group instruction in math. And this is centered around CGI principles. The training included, helping teachers understand and use number sense routines as part of their instruction, how to run their whole group instruction using story problems and the adopted curriculum, and then how to run small group instruction that's connected to the whole group instruction. And while small group instruction is going on, what should those centers look like? And so centers should focus on problem solving, on fluency building, and then our math software. Something that's exciting about this is Dr. Garcia and I have been walking through classrooms to do our visits. You actually see the students learning and the teachers learning about these different activities that they would do in those centers so that when it's time to be independent, they understand what the expectation is during their center time. I think the most exciting part for me so far has been hearing students talk about math, hearing them excited about math and seeing them excited about math as we walk through, hearing them use math vocabulary and talking about their thinking. It has just been so exciting to see this in action. And again, as Dr. Garcia said, it's almost as if we've never left, for the summer. Our teachers picked this up, over the past few weeks, and they are, they hit the ground running with it, and they're doing a fabulous job. We have professional development days this week. Actually, today and tomorrow and Wednesday are our data days that are focusing on our diagnostic assessment results from iReady. And most importantly, what are the instructional action steps that they will take now based on those results. We have restorative practices training for our psychologists and counselors taking place with the Orange County Department of Education. And then we have our instructional support specialists in special ed participating in SELPA modules around behavior and how to support students in the special education classes. On Friday, we have professional development geared to our new science adoption for all of our K-6 teachers and our 7th and 8th grade science teachers. We will have, for those teachers who do not teach science, we have Step Up to Writing training for our language arts and social studies and PE teachers, because writing can happen in any subject area, and that's what we promote and encourage. Small group instruction in math for our 7th and 8th grade math teachers, strengthening our choir program for our music teachers, and then reimagining TK for our TK teachers and their instructional assistants as well. At the Jeff Seymour Family Center, we've had a few events. We had our Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. Unfortunately, it had to turn into a drive-through event because of the weather. It was raining, but we did send out an announcement, and parents did drive through, and they were given moon cakes, and they were given lantern-making kits for their children. We will be hosting movie nights sponsored by Active SGV. And those movie nights are partnered with the ability to have COVID vaccines. The first one is on the 29th of September. Vaccines are available for kiddos ages 3 on up, and they take place from 5 to 7. And then our bike park is open Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to sundown, Saturday from 10 to 4:30, and closed on Sundays. And there's always, you can tell when that time hits because you see a lot of students riding their bikes and parents taking their kids to ride their bikes on the pump track. In terms of parent classes that we've been hosting and will be hosting, we have a special education series that's starting up called the Understanding the Process for Special Education. So this is geared towards families who are just starting to navigate special education, understand it. It's 5 workshops to help prepare and support parents. And it's utilizing a program. I can't remember who created it. I'm so sorry. But La Sopa de la Abuela. And it's a special education telenovela. And it follows the family through the process of, accessing special education services, what to expect at an IEP meeting, and so on. We will also be partnering with the Amani Union High School District Adult School to offer ESL classes at 7 of our sites, and those classes begin in October. And then we have our BCBA, our behavior specialist, who has been conducting behavior management trainings for our parents. And the next one is the well-mannered child, and the dates are there in various languages. And another thing we are very proud of and excited about is our Expanded Learning Opportunities program. We have started with Wind Tree Education. This takes place during our Aspire After School program. And currently 75 students per site are going through this. They receive access to studio and digital art, science exploration through electricity, and there will be more to come in the coming weeks. We had very, very exciting news. Our Petro students, ages 8 to 11, 16 of them, participated in the Southern California Golf Association Junior Golf. And there's a picture of them here. This was just on Sunday. This was just yesterday. And they had so much fun. And this is for the next 8 weeks, 8 Sundays. They receive a polo shirt and a hat or a visor. And they're fitted for golf equipment so that they have the appropriate equipment while they're playing. We are starting our Soccer for Success, and our kids play is back again at all of our sites. In the works, we will have students participating in bowling, hopefully through action lanes. We're working with the United States Tennis Association at a couple of our sites to provide training for teachers and staff to be able to teach students the proper form for tennis. We're partnering with Parks and Rec for more activities. We will have Mandarin enrichment that will support our Mandarin program at New Lexington. And we are hoping to partner with Arcadia Part 3 to extend our golf experience for our students.
At our previous board meeting, we had shared some of the new teacher and various new employee orientations that we did, and we talked about the expansion of our intervention programs and with our intervention teachers at each site and our counselors as well. And so today we just wanted to kind of share a little bit more background information in regards to that process. So over the course of the summer, so from when school let out to this morning, we had already processed 149 what we consider employee onboarding, 49 of those being new employees to our district, and tomorrow I guess we'll process number 50 with the approval tonight of Dr. Torres. And then we had over approximately 100 what we call change in placements, which is usually someone that maybe is promoted from within or is already an employee, such as maybe they're a substitute teacher, but then they become maybe an intervention teacher with us and so on. So we don't consider that necessarily a new hire, and instead we call it a change of placement. But that said, each of these processes require a lot of things behind the scenes and then things to take place after the actual acceptance of a job. And that includes posting, candidate reviews, and then, of course, the onboarding of an employee, which involves quite a few steps, including fingerprinting, meeting with them, paperwork, and so on. So I just wanted to bring that little bit of information in regards to what has taken place over the summer in regards to our staffing to ensure that we have our staffing when we started the first day of school. And then always we try to bring some COVID updates, and as Dr. Garcia alluded to earlier, today was our first day where masking was optional for indoors. As you know, we're probably one of the final districts that have taken that step, which we're okay with because we've always taken that cautious approach towards our protocols and our safety of our community, our staff, and so on. So as a reminder, though, masking is still a strong recommendation, right? And they usually, when they verbalize it, they usually an emphasis on strong recommendation from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. We continue to provide all of our PPE within our classrooms and then even at our gates, so we have plenty of masks, hand sanitizers, and so on. Our goal is to ensure that anyone that wants to continue wearing a mask, that they feel comfortable doing so. So it's not about saying it's optional now. It's about saying you choose what you feel is best for you, and we will support you 100% through that. And then we began the year with our temperature checks, and we will continue that until further notice. We still feel that it's a good measure to have in place, and so we'll continue that at our gates as well. With flu season coming up, it may help us identify some of that aspect of it as well, so not just a COVID situation. The COVID relief bill, which was probably enacted last March, but went back to January 1, was a newly created 10 days of COVID sick coverage. And so they just signed a trailer bill, which actually extends it through December 31st. It was initially set to expire at the end of this month, at the end of September. But it is expanded through December 31st. It does not add an additional 10 days. It's just still the initial 10 days that were there available for all employees within the state. And then just to kind of cover a little bit, days 1 through 5 allow for you to care for another. And then you can access days 6 through 10 if you actually test positive. So there are some restrictions in regards to it. And then finally, Los Angeles County Department of Public Health has always sort of been our guidance in terms of our safety protocols. But Cal OSHA has always been involved as well. We just never really talked about Cal OSHA. They set up the requirements for workplaces and the restrictions and requirements in regards to the safety for employees, the adults in our facilities. So we're still following the guidance and requirements under the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, reopening protocols and their exposure management plan. But we also have to keep in mind that Cal OSHA actually has some restrictions as well. The reminder that as we identify close contacts and while masking is optional, if you are identified as a close contact, then you actually are required to wear a mask while indoors. That's part of the exposure management plan, but Cal OSHA actually supports that as well in regards to ensuring that that takes place. So while there's talk about the county maybe trying to align with the state in regards to the masking for close contacts, even if that were to take place for our employees, Cal OSHA still is in effect, and we'd still have to follow that for our adults. So that's kind of a sort of a requirement that's there that maybe most people don't recognize.
Just a quick question. Is that for the kids also?
Cal OSHA would not be for kids, actually. Cal
but
OSHA.
are we, like, for close contacts, is that the?
The exposure management plan specifically says for any close contact, and it talks about students and adults that they're required to wear a mask and so on. Where it's different for us is as we continue to do, we use our 6 foot as our contact tracing because the Los Angeles County guidance does allow that. Most districts have gone to the group tracing, which means if you're in a smaller room, this would not consider for group tracing, but a classroom. Any person in that room would be considered a close contact. We do our 6 foot contact tracing because we think it's more accurate. Cal OSHA alludes to that we should be using group tracing for adults. And so even if we use 6 feet, they would still consider that adult, even if they're at the far corner, to potentially be a close contact.
Thank you, Dr. Pinedo. I think you got stuck being the, thank you. Wow, inclement weather. What a treat to start off the school year and then right to it. Let's test our air conditioning units across the district. I will tell you that Dr. Pinedo and I have been visiting schools, and it's just something else to be in and out of classrooms that are outside it's 100 degrees, but the most extraordinary thing is to see our facilities and maintenance team up on roofs fixing the units that were not cooling as much as they should, or some that had were really struggling because of the heat, and it was just a nonstop operation. I have to just really highlight and elevate the work that they've done during the last few weeks to make sure that all kids were safe and were learning in a safe environment. And then a big shout out to our teachers, our principals, our support staff, our supervision assistants, because we transitioned to an inclement weather schedule. So what we formerly knew as rainy day schedules, it was inclement weather where lunch periods are shortened so that kids can just really go get a bite to eat and then come back and spend time in the classroom to socialize and get those wiggles out or to play. So it was quite a unique situation, but all that to say that I really want to elevate the Amani City School District school community for collaborating and making sure that kids still continue to have fun, that they were safe, and we just kept moving along. And I think Robert pulled up those temperature degrees, but I don't know, it felt like 120 degrees on those days. I don't know about that 96 degrees there, Robert. Got it. Many of you talked about visiting our back to school nights, and I think last week we concluded the last two of our back to school nights, and I will echo Mrs. Rivas' sentiments about how wonderful it was to reconnect. Because that's what it was. It was really an opportunity for the school to come together and to see one another. And for many of us, we just hadn't seen all of our school community together that way, re-engaged, and lots of resources shared with our families that those evenings. They were very well attended, and we're already thinking of many different ideas on how we can support more family nights on our campuses to support this opportunity for families to reconnect, re-engage, and to for us to be able to provide resources. And Mrs. Kobian alluded to our outdoor science camp. So one of the things that we're doing this year that we're really excited about is we're making outdoor science camp available to all students. We are paying the cost so that no one stays behind, and we're going to be working with families to really emphasize how important it is, this experience, how important it is, and the value that comes from students participating. We are going to be attending Camp Brightwood, which is located in the San Bernardino Mountains. It'll be a 3-day experience for our students. Camp Brightwood is 6,000 feet of elevation with 4 different seasons. That's kind of a novelty, but our kids will be able to see what fall and hopefully potentially winter looks like. And this is in partnership with the Los Angeles County Office of Education. As you know, a part of this outdoor science camp experience is providing students with hands-on, place-based learning, an experience for students to just grow academically, socially. And what I really like is that we're doing it early on at this time of the year so that kids will still have the opportunity to connect, get to know one another, and all the different connections across the scientific disciplines. So that's really exciting. And lastly, I think I've alluded to this several times. Dr. Pinedo and I have been visiting all schools. It's been just so wonderful to see classrooms up and running and, just doing all this wonderful and amazing work, in particularly, the CGI lessons that we've been able to see. We were at Rio Hondo School last Friday, and I walked over to a student and I said, "Tell me what you're doing." And she said, explained what they were doing and how they were doing the counting collections. And it was, they were older students, and she said, I asked her, "Do you like this activity?" She said, "Yes, I didn't like math before, but now I do." And I said, "Well, what changed?" And she said, "I understand it. I understand what I'm doing, and I'm able to speak to what I'm doing." And so that's really what it's about. It's really great to walk into classrooms where kids are not quiet, and they're actually engaged in the learning, and they're talking to one another, and they're co-creating responses. And it's not always the right response, right? There's just responses can come from many different sources. And so we have a few more schools to go, but really looking forward to that visit. And I'm excited to be able to open up my calendar later in the year to invite board members to also join me on school visits. And lastly, our theme, as you know, for this year is Together We Rise, and lots of evidence every single day about how our district comes together to do what's right and what's best for our kids and for our school community. And Dr. Torres is an example of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Yes, absolutely. Together we rise. I want to ask my colleagues on the board if they have any questions, comments. I have some questions. Well, one particular on the slide, Dr. Pinedo, that you showed us on the COVID vaccines, right? So these are in collaboration with Active SGV, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And has our district ever looked into perhaps mobile vaccine clinics to come into our school campuses? Dr. Garcia, you were mentioning family nights to continue that. I mean, we saw all of the parents that came out for the back to school nights. And so I was just wondering if there's some consideration into perhaps bringing mobile vaccine clinics.
There is. I'll just jump on. I know that right now with the Omicron booster that's just become available, it's something that the team is working behind the scenes to be able to provide the vaccine. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were focused on testing, we used the Jeff Seymour Family Center and many of our sites. And as you recall, at the time, we were in a virtual learning setting, and so it was really easy to open up school sites where the majority, students weren't there, and there was a few employees that were there. And so as we began to open up, it became really easy to do the vaccines and the testing clinics at the Jeff Seymour Family Center, so that our students weren't commingling with community members, because we don't just open it up to our school community, we really open it up to anyone in the Amani community and so forth. And so there's considerations for how do we partner up with our current partners to provide the booster. And then we're also looking at opportunities, such as TDAPS. That's something that is required of all of our sixth graders as they enter seventh grade. And so we're having conversations now with how can we provide these vaccines on campuses on nights like, for example, open house, where we know parents are going to be there. Kind of like when you go visit your physician for something else and they're like, hey, can we give you the flu shot? We're going to kind of take on a little bit of that approach. And all from a place of a resource, right? We just want to make opportunities available for students and families so that it's one less thing that they have to worry about. But lots of planning, and we're very fortunate that we were able to provide so many services during the pandemic that we became a true partner to many of the organizations that are out there, Kaiser and so forth, that will look to us to really support this next booster and any further vaccination opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Thank you for that information. Also, another thing that really stood out were the ESL classes that are going to be offered now, partnering with the Amani Union High School District to our parents, right, in the 7 schools. So I was very, very happy to see that. Thank you for bringing that. Also, my last question is, I believe I saw behavior management classes for our parents and others, right? Other classes. And my question is, at what times do these classes happen?
Those are in the afternoons at 3:00.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Those were all my questions. So thank you. That was such a great. This is the second one, right? As far as a PowerPoint presentation, as far as our cabinet reports. I'm a very visual person, and I love PowerPoint presentations. So this is wonderful. And if we can embed a video maybe one of these days, that would be great. I think we had one from Dr. Garcia. So that would be great.
We can work
Thank
on videos.
you. Thank you for that. We would have listened to the mariachi music right there. Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2 under discussion session, board meeting access. And we know that for this item, our colleague on the board, Mr. Segrist, he suggested this item. And I don't know about you, but maybe if we can table this item until he comes back, so that maybe he can help us a little bit to elaborate on what his thoughts are and whatnot. So we'll table item number 2. And now moving on to 3 future discussion items. Do we have any that the board would like to come back to? Okay, so hearing none. At this point, I think we're ready to adjourn our meeting. But nevertheless, in memory of those we lost on September 11th, 2001. And with this, we will end our meeting at 6:50 p.m.